Hello students, in the previous class we have gone through the introduction about the fluids and next pressure and the measurement of the pressure, and next we have seen about the Pascal's law. Now we are going to start up the applications of the Pascal's law, that is the devices which works on the principle of the Pascal's law are known as hydraulic machines. The hydraulic machines are those devices which works on the principle of Pascal's law. And we have the hydraulic machines like hydraulic lift, hydraulic press, hydraulic brake, and the dentist chairs, and so many other things. In these hydraulic machines, we are going to study about the hydraulic lift and the hydraulic brake. We will start with the hydraulic lift. It is based on the Pascal's law. The hydraulic lifts, these works on the basis of Pascal's law, and this hydraulic lift is used to support or the lift to the heavy objects. To lift the heavy objects like cars, trucks, or many other heavy loads, these hydraulic lifts are used. It consists of two cylinders. See, in this figure we can see it consists of two cylinders, the cylinder A and the cylinder B. Both are joined together by a pipe. This cylinder A and this cylinder B, both are joined together by this horizontal pipe. And this cylinder is filled by the liquid, such as oil we are taking. This whole cylinder is filled by the oil, and as the figure we can see that the area of the cylinder B is more than the area of cylinder A. So the B has the larger cross-sectional area than the cylinder A, and this cylinder A consists of a piston P1 and this cylinder B consists of piston P2. A has a P1 piston and B has a P2 piston. And A1 and A2 are the cross-sectional areas of A and B. And by this figure only we can get to know that the area of B, that is A2, is greater than the area of A, that is A2 is greater than the A1. Let us F1 amount of force is applied to the piston P1. We are applying the F1 amount of force to the piston P1 so that the pressure is produced. So whatever the pressure produces at the P1 is F1 divided by A1, where F1 is the force applied and A1 is the area of cross section at the A cylinder. So by using the Pascal's law, and we know that this hydraulic lift works on the principle of Pascal's law. So by Pascal's law we say that whatever the pressure we have applied at the P1 piston is transmitted through this whole container and comes to hit the P2 piston . This whatever the force we have applied, this F1 is transmitted through this container without any loss and hits to the bottom of the piston 2, that is P2. So we can say that the force acting on a piston 2 is F2, and we don't know how much force is acting on this piston 2. So we are finding out the F2 here. So F2 is equal to, we know, pressure on P2 into area of P2, because pressure is equal to, we know that, force divided by area. So force is equal to pressure into area, we can write. So pressure into area, that is equal to force here. So, and we know that the pressure on P2, whatever the pressure acting on this P2 is due to the P1, right? So we know the pressure whatever we have applied from P1 is F1 divided by A1. So substitute here F1 divided by A1 and multiplied by area of P2, and we know the area of P2 as A2. So substitute here, we get that F2 is equal to F1 divided by A1 into A2, and we can write it as F2 is equal to A2 divided by A1 into F1. Since we know that A2 is greater than A1, by this diagram only we can see that the area of cross section at the cylinder B is greater than area of cross section at the cylinder A. So as A2 is greater than A1, whole this quantity A2 by A1 is more than 1 we will get. So F2 becomes larger than the F1. So we will get F2 is greater than the F1. So by making the ratio A2 by A1 large, we can adjust these ratios. So by making the area of cross section of second cylinder greater, so much greater than the first cylinder, we can lift the heavy objects by applying a small amount of force. As A2 is greater than A1, that's why only here we got F2 is greater than F1. So by applying a less amount of force, we are getting the more amount of force at the cylinder B, which is used for the lifting of the heavy objects. So by making the ratio A2 by A1 as large, we can lift the heavy objects by applying a small amount of force. This is one of the application of Pascal's law. And next we have hydraulic brake. These are the hydraulic brake system. This is also working on the principle of Pascal's law only, and this whatever the hydraulic brake system is there, this is mainly used in the automobiles. Automobiles means the vehicles, cars, bikes, cars, and etc. In those, with this hydraulic brake system is used to reduce or to stop the motion of the vehicle. By applying the brake, when you apply the brake from your hand or foot, that moment only the vehicle stops, or the motion of that vehicle slows down. That is the mechanism of the hydraulic brake system. We are going to see the mechanism, how it works. See, it consists of a master cylinder. See, this is a master cylinder which is having a piston P in this. And this piston P is connected to the brake pedal. Brake pedal which you press when you want to apply brake on that vehicle. Whatever the brake pedal is there, you will press that brake pedal. So this master cylinder's piston is connected to the brake pedal by using a lever system. Whatever this system is there, this is known as a lever system. By using this lever system, the brake pedal is connected to the piston of the master cylinder, and this master cylinder is connected to the wheel. This is the wheel. So this master cylinder is connected to this wheel by using a tube here, right? And this wheel consists of two pistons P1 and P2, and which are connected to the brake shoes S1 and S2. This is about the construction of this hydraulic brake system. And when the brake pedal is pressed, when we press this brake pedal, the lever system works, and when this lever system works, the piston is pushed, and when the piston is pressed, whatever this fluid consisting in this tube, that will be gaining the pressure. So because of that pressure, the P1 and P2 pistons will get the equal pressure by this master cylinder. So both the P1 and P2 moves outward. When the brake pedal is pressed, the lever system works, and this piston is pushed inside the master cylinder, so that whatever the fluid is there in this tube, that will be experiencing certain pressure. By that pressure, the piston P1 and P2 are moving outward direction. That is, P1 is moving in the left direction and P2 is moving in the right direction, so that the S1 and S2 brake shoes will be pressed. So that because of the pressing of this S1 and S2, the wheel will be slower down, or it will stop. This is about the mechanism of the hydraulic brake. And it is not only for a single wheel. This master cylinder is connected to the, how many wheels are present for that vehicle, this master cylinder is connected. See, these two other wheels we have written here. By this main tube only, that is connected to the other wheels also. And this is the mechanism of the hydraulic brake. Next we have the term density. Density means the density of any substance or a fluid is defined as the mass per unit volume of that substance. The density means this is the mass per unit volume of the substance. It is denoted by the letter rho. If m is the mass of the substance, if V is the volume of the substance, then the density of that substance is written as rho. Density is equal to m divided by V, where m is the mass of the substance and V is the volume of the substance. And the SI unit for the density is kg per meter cube. And the dimensional formula for the density is m L minus 3 T0. And fluids means these are the combination of the liquids and gases, or the liquids and the gases both are known as the fluids here. So in case of liquids, the density of liquids approximately does not change with the change in the pressure, because we know that the liquids are incompressible. As they are incompressible, when we apply certain pressure on the liquid, the volume remains as it is. As the volume remains as it is, and we know that density is depending on the mass and the volume. So volume remains as it is, so density will not change in case of liquids. And in case of gases, and we know that the gases are the compressible in nature, so when we apply certain pressure on the gases, the volume gets changed. So because of that volume gets changed, the density of that gases also changes. And next we have relative density. Relative density means the relative density of the substance is the ratio of its density to the density of water. Relative density means this is the ratio of the density of the substance to the density of the water. And the density of water, we know that 1 into 10 raised to 3 kg per meter cube. This is the density of water, and this relative density is a dimensionless quantity because it is a ratio of a density of a substance to the density of a water. Both are having the same SI units, so both get cancels from numerator and denominator. So whatever the result we will getting, that is only the numbers. So we are saying that the relative density is a dimensionless quantity. For example, relative density of aluminum, that is 2.7, where the density of aluminum is 2.7 into 10 raised to 3 kg per meter cube, and the density of water is 1 into 10 raised to 3 kg per meter cube. By taking the ratio of density of aluminum to the density of water, we will get 2.7. It is the relative density of the aluminum. Next, we will see the variation of pressure with depth. We know the pressure, and in case of the liquid or a fluid, when we go down or when we go deep to the that liquid or a fluid, how the pressure is changing, that is we are studying here. That is the variation of pressure with depth. Here considering a liquid of the density rho, we are taking a vessel here, and in this vessel we are adding a liquid having the density rho, and whatever this vessel is there, in this vessel the liquid is at rest. And let us consider a imaginary liquid cylinder. In that we are having a container of the liquid, and in this liquid we are considering a imaginary liquid cylinder. This is the imaginary liquid cylinder. This, whatever the cylinder we have drawn inside this vessel, this cylinder is the imaginary one. This is not existing. To know about the variation, how the pressure is varying, for that purpose we are taking a imaginary liquid cylinder in this. And in that imaginary liquid cylinder we are taking the points A and B. A is the upper point, B is the lower point. Both points A and B are separated by some height h, and here we have to calculate the pressure at a depth. So we are calculating the pressure at point B because B is deeper than the point A. B is at the depth of value of h. So consider the bottom point B. It has the area of cross section as A. Consider as in this imaginary liquid cylinder we are considering the point B, and this point B is having the area of cross section as A. Then mass of this liquid in the imaginary cylinder, whatever the liquid is there in this imaginary cylinder, mass of that liquid we are going to calculate here. Mass is equal to volume into density. This is by the relation we know that the density is equal to mass divided by volume. So, and from this equation we can write the mass value is equal to density into volume, as here m is equal to volume into density. And we know that the volume equation is area into height, and we know area and we know height. So we are substituting here, in place of volume we are substituting the area into height. So we get the equation M is equal to area into height into density. So we know the area, that is A, and we know the height, that is H, and we know the density of that liquid, that is rho. Then substituting, we will get the mass is equal to AH rho. And this is the mass of the liquid in the imaginary cylinder. And then calculate the weight of the liquid cylinder. We know that mass and the weights are the different quantities. So we have the relation between the mass and the weight as W. Weight is equal to mass into acceleration due to gravity. So substituting the mass value from the above equation, we will see W is equal to AH rho into G. This is the weight of the liquid in that imaginary cylinder. And weight, whatever the weight is there, it is also a kind of force we can write. See, at point B, this point B is experiencing the weight of the whole cylinder, and that weight is kind of a force we can write. So at point B, whatever the force is there, that is due to the weight of that imaginary cylinder. So which is acting in the downward direction, that is due to the gravity. So we will have the pressure at the point B as P is equal to weight divided by area, and we know the weight value, that is AH rho G divided by area A. So area get cancels. We will get the pressure at the point B as H rho G. Thus we can say that the hydrostatic pressure exerted by the liquid column at rest. Hydrostatic pressure means here whatever the liquid or fluid we have taken, that is in the rest position. So because of that rest position only, the pressure is occurring here. So whatever the pressure is there, that is due to hydrostatic pressure. So we can say that hydrostatic pressure exerted by the liquid column at rest is directly proportional to, by this equation we can write, this pressure P is directly proportional to height of the liquid column and the density of the liquid column, and directly proportional to the gravity. This is about the variation of pressure with the depth. And in this equation only, if PA, we are considering if PA as the atmospheric pressure. Atmospheric pressure means the pressure exerted by the atmosphere or the air. Then this PA is representing the atmospheric pressure. Then the total pressure P at the depth H. The total pressure acting on this point B is, we can write it as P is equal to PA plus H rho G, because PA is the atmospheric pressure, because at the point B it is experiencing the pressure due to the liquid column also, and also due to the atmospheric pressure, because the atmospheric pressure is the pressure exerted by the air, and that atmospheric pressure is applying to all the things here. So at point B also it is also experiencing certain atmospheric pressure. So this equation P is equal to H rho G, it becomes P is equal to PA plus H rho G. And this equation, that is P is equal to PA plus H rho G, is called as a absolute pressure. And from this equation we can write as P minus PA is equal to H rho G. Here this P minus PA is equal to H rho G. This excess pressure at the depth of H is called as gauge pressure. This total P is equal to is known as a absolute pressure, and P minus PA is equal to H rho G is known as a gauge pressure. We can also define the gauge pressure as the differences of the pressure between 2 points separated by the depth H. The differences of the pressures from A from B. There is a difference of the pressures here. At the point A the pressure is different. At the point B the pressure is different. Point A the pressure is only due to the atmosphere because it is at a upper surface. Only the pressure it can experience that is due to the atmosphere. But at the point B, whatever the pressure is there, that is due to atmosphere also, and also due to the liquid column. So the differences of the pressures between 2 points separated by the depth H is known as gauge pressure. Thus, we can write the gauge pressure as equal to absolute pressure minus atmospheric pressure. By using these equations also, we can write that is gauge pressure G P minus PA is equal to absolute pressure, that is PA plus H rho G minus atmospheric pressure, that is PA. So, minus PA. PA of this and PA from the atmospheric pressure get cancels. We will get the equation P minus PA is equal to H rho G, that is the gauge pressure. And by these equations we get to know about that in determining the pressure at a depth inside the liquid, while determining the pressure in depth inside the liquid, this is only depending on the height of the liquid column. See, by this equation P is equal to H rho G. This is depending only on the height of the liquid column. It is not depending on the area of cross section or base area or shape of the container. The shape of the container may be anything. It is not depending on that. And the base area, it is not depending on that. And also the area of that liquid column, it is also not depending on that. So whatever the pressure is there, that is only depending on the height of the liquid column. So we can write as the different amount of liquid exerts same pressure at same depth. If we take 3 containers which are having the different shapes, but all 3 are having the same amount of liquid in that, so whatever the base of that containers experience, the pressures are same. The shapes may be different, but that pressure is not depending on the shape of the container. So that is known as hydrostatic paradox. That is, the different amount of liquid exerts same pressure at the same depth. This is called as hydrostatic paradox.